Joining me now, Senator Roger Marshall from the state of Kansas. And if I may, Dr. Marshall, we're here to talk about the shutdown and the Democrats and the refusal to vote to pay our military, and I have some thoughts on that as well. But is there, Dr. Marshall was also a senator, a treatment for Trump projection disorder? Because Trump derangement syndrome, I don't think covers this enough anymore.
Yeah, David, well, good morning. And actually, I've been saying for several months it's risen to the level of psychosis now. It is absolutely projection. They're accusing Trump of lawfare. Well, what did they do? I mean, they went after him like we've never seen before as well. So it is absolutely projection in so many ways. And I say it's a psychosis because you become psychotic when you can't separate reality from fake. Right. So in their minds, they think they're right. So they're going through their stages of depression. They still are in denial. They lost the election. They're still angry about it. And now that's become a psychosis. When a person has a personality disorder, we all got something going on. Right. But as long as it doesn't interfere with your life, you manage it. But it becomes a psychosis when you can't separate fake from reality. So they are absolutely, I call it psychotic projection.
I mean, it literally, and this is rare for me, I've been covering politics too long. It literally makes me wonder how much they think we're that stupid, or do they just think their base is that stupid? Because, for example, the White House renovation, not the first one, there have been multiple renovations in different forms, paid for by private donors, is driving them to lie, not misdirect, lie outright. It's just the end of the White House, like the end of democracy. And by the way, if Trump was the fascist that Kamala Harris claimed he was on BBC just days ago, then a fascist wouldn't let her back into the country.
Yeah, and she would have never been the nominee for the Democrat Party. That's the monarchy part of this. Basically, even though if you go back to Joe Biden, he wasn't going to win that primary. Bernie Sanders was going to win it, but they got together, they appointed Joe Biden, and then when he fails cognitively, they appoint her as well. So then they accused President Trump of being the monarchy, but really that the Democrat Party followed that monarchy. But they have lost their mind, David. I think that's. And I'm trying to think of another analogy. I think we've all known someone to go through a divorce process. They're fighting over the kids. It turns really ugly, and they just can't see the other person's point of view. I call that functioning at an emotional level. They're not even a rational level. An emotional level is a first grader when you go out to play PE and the boy that wants to choose the teams, choose the game, choose the rules, change the rules as they go along, they're functioning psychologically at the level of a first grader, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And I think even more dangerously, in the case of a Maine senator, state senator, they literally have a self-described Antifa super soldier. The guy has Nazi skull and crossbones tattooed on him, not a temporary hemp tattoo or whatever the heck they do. But he's up by 34 points. So I got to ask the question sometimes, maybe rhetorically more than anything to our conversation, have they just gone beyond any hope?
I'm almost speechless, David. I didn't realize that. So you're talking about the primary in Maine. I know the person you're talking about, but and don't forget, they're going to elect a communist mayor in New York City as well. So certainly they have the tail wagging the dog in the Democrat Party here. The tail being the far left Marxist party. And bordering on communism in some cases. But the good news is we've got a great candidate in Maine. She'll be the only Republican representing the entire New England now in Congress, in Susan Collins, who's chairwoman of the Appropriations Committee. She's passed out of committee 8 out of the 12 buckets of funding with super majority levels. People say, can't you guys do anything to get along? And she's doing it. She's figuring out a way to do appropriations. And granted, she's spending more money than I want to, but to make it bipartisan, that's what she's had to do. But Chuck Schumer won't let those go to the floor. So I can't speak to the primary bit. I can't speak to our incumbent, Susan Collins, who does a great job representing her state. Now, she wouldn't vote like you and I would on a lot of things, but she does a great job of representing her state, which is very, very blue.
Yeah, if given a chance or a choice, I'll put it that way, between the two, Planter versus Collins, I'm going to choke down that conservative side of me and say, let's put her in. Let's get to a point that and a more serious point here. Obviously, these are all serious, even in sometimes their sarcastic analysis. The Republicans, who are holding strong, so kudos to the Republicans in both the House and the Senate, uh, put up a bill to pay military service members and some accepted federal employees who have worked without pay during the shutdown. I wonder if the Democrats, not only will they vote against Trump with this projection disorder, with this TPD, we'll just call it TPD going forward, but also if they see this as a potential way to slow down any deployment of military around the country where they're sadly and tragically needed to help bring down the threat to American citizens.
Well, David, I think you're giving them too much credit for having a plan, is what my gut feeling here is. They are spinning on their heads like tops right now. And I don't know if you ever played tops when you were a little boy, but my brother and I did. And you launch these tops, maybe 7 or 10 of them, and the last one standing wins, and they bang into each other. I don't think that they've got a plan. I think that they are very fractured. And you can tell if they're rudderless, they're leaderless, they don't know what to do next. But I can tell you, a common question I get from the press up here is, what are the people back home saying? But this not paying the military has hit a chord. I don't know that anybody wins during a government shutdown, but not paying the military has upset a lot of people. My dad served, my brother served, I served, my son is serving. So this is a big deal to the Marshall family. It's a big deal to many, many families out there. And it's not, especially if you're an enlisted person. And everybody else in my family that went in were enlisted. So they're living paycheck to paycheck, very much so. So it is just beyond the pale to think that we're asking these people to protect us, to stop the drugs coming into this country. We have 100,000 troops over in Europe right now trying to keep Putin in check as well, folks all over the South Sea. So we asking a lot of these folks to not get paid in many, many ways. So I do think that is kind of our trump card right now. And you would have thought it had been vice versa. I think that is our trump card. We need to hold it tight, that they're not even willing to pay the military right now.
I like to look at things sometimes more broadly to see where there are points of intersect or certainly areas of concern. The president's on his Asia trip right now. We've got a government shutdown underway. We have a huge Chinese influence operation that's been underway for years and an infiltration of the Democrat Party and its leadership. We've seen example after example, including members of the Senate like Dianne Feinstein in close associations, Adam Schiff, now a senator, close associations with CCP-linked people, companies, and otherwise. The president will meet with Xi Jinping, and I wonder if also there's an element of this that ties to their ability or their wish to infiltrate and influence American politics, because President Trump is lining up leverage, as he did with the Malaysia, Thailand, and Cambodia peace deal, the economic components of deal diplomacy, as he's done in other times. And look, you and I have had many, I like to call them the adult conversations that Americans need to have, to look for the tangents and the touch points to try to understand who the players are.
Yeah, David, so we are kind of getting into three-dimensional chess now. I would draw your attention to Scott Bessent and what a great compliment he has been to President Trump. And then you throw Jamison Greer, who's our United States trade rep ambassador as well, working with Trump. And I love that Bessent used the phrase that President Trump, gave him a bargaining position of power. And as I think about what's going on with keeping the government open, I'm thinking the same thing. How do we maintain this position of power in these negotiations? But President Trump has used these leverages to bring China to the table. Now, make no mistake about it, David. I think that this is fool's gold. It'll take, even if the Chinese sign something, it means nothing. You don't watch what they say, watch what they do going forward. So we've been on this roller coaster. I've told my farmers over and over again, don't build a business plan based upon access to the Chinese market. America should be ashamed of ourselves that we're so dependent upon them for not just rare earth minerals, but also pharmaceutical ingredients. And I'm sure there's a whole list of other things. Don't underestimate, and I know you don't. I'm much more concerned about the cyber attacks from China, what they're doing with crypto. The Chinese triad is the Chinese mafia that's throughout the United States. They do all the money laundering for the cartel. They've taken over the marijuana industry across the country as well, and they are very involved in the human trafficking in many ways as well. So we are. All I can tell you is, however bad you think it is, it's worse, and it's a full-time job just trying to keep track of the CCP in the country.